How would you talk a customer through price objections?
Yeah, so this is something aside from being asked it in an interview, it's something that you're going to run up against once you're in role. Um, Especially given, I can easily speak for current times right now, right? As of today, the time that we're having this interview, macroeconomically speaking, there's a lot of uncertainty. Price objections are something that very often come up in these conversations as customers are looking to buckle down for what could potentially become a recession, a mild one, whether it's, how severe that is. But regardless, price is definitely top of mind for most organizations. So whenever you get to the point of a price objection, there's a few things to take into consideration and to really understand from a customer's perspective as to why they might be having those reservations or objections. So when price becomes a topic of conversation, in my experience, this is usually after evaluation, demonstrations, and validation from the customer that the solution that it is, or the solution that we're selling or proposing to them, is something that they want and they can benefit from. Right? You don't really get to the pricing conversation until you validated with the customer from start to end of a sales cycle. Hey, this is your current state, this is what you want the future state to look like, here's how we're going to help you get from point A to point B. So once we have that validation that our solution is there to benefit them, there's a few routes that we can take when talking about price objections. And the first one, and really an activity or an exercise that I think needs to be done in most cases, is a business value analysis, business value assessment. There's multiple labels for what is essentially an assessment where you are tracking key metrics and goals with the customer, right? A lot of times when you're in a sales cycle, you want to become a trusted advisor, and you want to do so genuinely by one, understanding what the customer's current pains are. What are the metrics behind those pains? In many cases, they're going to have numbers that back up where they're currently at, and they're going to have numbers or goals that they want to reach. So by working with the customer, gathering these metrics, um, ultimately the solution that we're proposing is always going to bring value to the customer, and it's going to be aligned to these metrics. If we didn't, customers would not want to entertain an entire sales cycle or have us at the table for what could be a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So it's an investment on both ends of the table here, not only as a sales team, and specifically as a solutions architect, but also as a customer. They are investing time in evaluating and understanding what it is that you are proposing. So with that being said, having these metrics allows us to really show the customer how we plan on improving these metrics and what the dollar value is that's associated with each one of these metrics. For example, today I currently sell customer service solutions. One of the highest metrics that a contact center might have is things like customer satisfaction, CSAT, or average handle time. Every minute on the phone costs the customer a dollar amount associated with each minute. Lower CSATs also have negative effects on their organization. So, for example, in these cases, I would go in with a customer and understand what are their key metrics, where they're currently at, what their goals are, and associate, again, dollar values to each one of these metrics so that we can show how our solution has a proven history of helping customers in similar situations, right? So there's a lot of analysis that goes on in the back end that as a solutions architect, you might not be entirely hands-on with. But in most cases, in most selling organizations or in selling departments of these organizations, there are studies, numerous studies that have been performed, numerous surveys that have been performed of past and current customers as to how they've helped in certain regard with these metrics that this next customer might be tracking for. And essentially what we do is we align, again, those metrics to dollar amounts. We show them how we've done this in the past. And again, we show them how we can do the same with them. And one thing that I'd like to point out is to always be realistic, because it's very easy to overshoot these numbers. And it's amazing that you can go out there and say, hey, we're going to, over this, 5-year period, it's going to be, $20 million in ROI. But I tend to try to stay on the more realistic side, and if not a little bit undervalued, right? Regardless, the solution will bring value, but we want to be very realistic so that when we are tested by the customer, when they ask us, well, how did you come up with these numbers? We can, again, gain their trust by showing them, hey, we're not inflating anything. This is what we've seen on average, and we've actually taken it down slightly just so that in the case that we don't get to that average, what you're seeing or what we're presenting here today is very realistic in terms of what this return on that investment might be, whether it's through initial reduced costs, increased automation, integrations. There's a lot of ways that a customer can gain or retain their customers, and that's ultimately what the name of the game is, regardless of what solution it is that you're selling to them. So now that we've talked a little bit about a potential analysis or an assessment that can be done, which again, I believe is something that should be performed in nearly every single sales cycle, especially depending on the dollar amount associated with it. The higher you go, the more need there is for this business value assessment or analysis that needs to be taken. But the second thing to look at is the factor of the cost of inaction. So there's a reason that the customer is evaluating out whatever solution it is that they're looking for. It's because something today currently does not work. And again, a customer is not going to entertain a sales cycle that can span weeks, months, tens, hundreds of emails, phone calls, and meetings just to play around. They are genuinely looking to improve upon something that they already have existing within their ecosystem. And there are intangible costs associated with that. So if we can show the customer what their pain looks like today and what it looks like going forward if nothing is done, there again are dollar value amounts that are associated with continuing to run the business as they are today. And in many cases, the customer understands that, or else we would never have been there speaking with them in the first case. So the second factor to really look at is the cost of doing nothing. And there are extreme costs that can be associated to that, again, because they are there looking to evaluate out and change whatever it is that's not working today. Now, the last factor to take into account here, and this is starting to stray away from the solutions architect role, and this is really starting to speak to the account team as a whole, which you will most likely be working with, sales or account executive, is that they have multiple ways or multiple levers to pull on when deals reach this stage, right? Negotiation is something that a sales or account executive is versed for. This is their job. You're there to be the technical and the trusted advisor to build that trust and to show them how, technically or solution-wise, the solution will benefit them. But when it comes to the actual sales negotiation portion of this, there's a couple of different ways that organizations have found to structure contracts. For example, in this case, I'm thinking of potentially allowing customers to defer payments, for the first year, for the first 6 months. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of times you might be going into what's considered like a rip and replace. The customer has a current solution in today. The solution is no longer meeting their needs. The solution that you are looking to sell replaces that and adds on additional functionality. The only issue with a customer signing the contract with you today is that they're going to be double spending on essentially two solutions that do the same thing in this case, right? So with the levers that sales and account executives have, they have the ability, again, to structure out deals that work in the customer's favor so that, hey, we know that your renewal is coming up, for example, in December of this year. So that gives us about a 6-month timeline. If we could pause payments or defer payments until January of the following fiscal year, that would allow the customer to only remain paying what they currently are obligated to pay for the current solution that they have. Meanwhile, we implement and migrate that information over to the new solution so that they can then, come renewal time for the current state solution that they have, cancel out or exit their contract, and then begin payments with our organization. Again, and that really comes down to understanding what the customer's challenges are. And ultimately, to answer the question, how would you talk a customer through price objections? It's really a matter of really understanding your customers' needs, understanding the issues that they're dealing with, and again, becoming that trusted advisor not only from a technical perspective but from a price perspective as to what timelines look like, what price, budget looks like. These are all very important factors that you need to know going through these sales cycles so that you can be well prepared for when the time comes of the price conversation.
Awesome. Awesome, Miles. How do you think that I know you just did a bunch of talking. So I'll go ahead and I'll give my feedback first. Usually we ask the interviewee to give their feedback, but you did a lot of talking, so
Oh
I'll give
yeah.
some of my feedback. So I think that first of all, your flow phenomenal, on point. I think the way that you answered the question, the way that you were flowing into, here's my first point, here's my second point, here's my third point, right? I think you did a really, really great job at that. And you were very clear and concise and very engaging throughout without even asking questions or anything like that. I think that's just kind of also with like, the tone of your voice and the way you talk. Like, I don't know, it felt like I was listening to a podcast. So, kudos to you on that.
Thank
Um,
you.
Kind of going back to, I like how you're like, here's one approach, here's the second, here's the third. You broke it down so it makes it
Yep.
easy and digestible and whatnot. I think you did a really good job in doing that. And also, in your third point, when you said that really, the account executives, the account managers, the salesperson's really the one in this case who is sort of that, they're sort of the expert when it comes to doing so. There's only so much as an SA that you can do, but the
Yep.
stuff that you do as an SA goes hand in hand with handling those price objections, right? You did the technical validation. You were that technical trusted advisor, right? So you got them on board. And if the customer were to not go ahead and sign because of price, not to put blame on anyone, but you kind of get that burden lift off of your shoulders. Like, hey, we did the technical validation. The price was just too much for them. Just so that it doesn't look bad on you and your reputation and whatnot. Because unfortunately, that is a reality that it can happen like that sometimes
Yep.
when you're working in sales organizations. There could be miscommunication and you could get the blame shifted upon you as the solution architect, the sales engineer, whatever your title is, that hey, they didn't do a good job at technical validation, right? So
Yep.
ensuring that you do that technical validation and whatnot, goes really like hand in hand with handling price objections and whatnot. But Miles, I'll go over to you now. How do you think that
Yeah.
went? What do you think you could improve on? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, when this conversation or when this topic comes up, there's again, it's multiple ways that you can approach it. So my methodology is, let's start off with the basics. Let's do some business value assessments or analysis, right? Let's go in prepared while we're doing demos, while we're talking to the customer, validating with the customer, even before demo, just understanding what the current state looks like, and so that we can get aligned to the customer's goals, because
Right.
ultimately that's what matters, right? There's costs associated with these goals. There's costs associated with what they're doing today. You do all of this homework throughout the cycle, right? You don't want to have this burden of, doing your, all this last minute homework, at the end when price becomes an issue, if it becomes an issue, right? So it's definitely incorporating that information and that analysis into the sales cycle from start to end, so that by the time price does come up, you are able to, in some cases after demo, show them what that, the business value case is, so
Sure.
that we can, cross the bridge as soon as we get done with validating the technical portion of the sales cycle, right? And then, yeah, overall, in answering the question, I make sure to structure it in a way that, we're going to start off with the most basics first. Second of all, we have to think about a little bit outside of the box. A lot of folks want to think about price, 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 and only that, and, what it is to input a new solution. But you also have to realize that, there's a cost of doing business the way that they're currently doing. They could have more
Hmm.
customers, they could retain more customers, they could upsell and cross sell more. Um, all of that has costs associated with it, opportunity costs as well, right? We put dollar amounts to that and show like, hey, aside from, the benefits of upgrading, this is what it's going to cost you in reality to keep doing what you're doing. And then lastly, I mean, Mohammed, you said it right. As a solutions architect, you have only so much you can do, right? You're there to become that technical and trusted advisor. And ultimately, the sales folks or the sales individuals that are part of the overall account team are responsible for price negotiation. You're there to validate the technical aspect of it. You're there to track some metrics, and potentially help with the analysis portion in the back end when it comes to dollar amounts and whatnot. But ultimately, there's a lot of creative ways that I've seen organizations, been able to structure contracts that it works out and the best benefit to the customer, allowing them to sign on a certain date, and then have things on a timeline for implementation and migration, right? So in terms of answering the question how I feel like it was a solid response. Of course, I'll say that, and I'm sure I might have missed out on a bullet point or two. By no means the all-knowing expert here, but in my experience, these are the three things that I typically look at first. And again, starting with the basics and then going over to the creative end of letting your sales and account executives work their magic with how they're going to structure contracts so that it works out and price is no longer an objection, whether it's, again, a discount or it's a structuring of, when they're going to pay or how they're going to pay. So yeah, overall, I think I did fairly well. I would hope you agree.
No, 100%, 100%. Awesome. Well, for those of you who are watching, I hope that you were able to get some value insights from Miles. I know that I myself did. And if you will, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this video with anyone who that's going through the interview process right now as a solutions architect, whether it's this video or any of the other videos that we have within the Mock Solution Architect interview series. And with that, hope you all have a good day.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below to let us know that this video was valuable for you. And of course, check out hundreds more videos just like this at tryexponent.com. Thanks for watching and good luck on your upcoming interview.